Hello, lovelies, and welcome to my prayer corner, Gila Kesla. And if you're joining us and you're new to Weird Church, Nukwam Ingrid Brown, my name is Ingrid Brown, and normally at Sunday gathering, I say, I welcome you into the church. And so today I welcome you into my home. But no matter where I am, no matter where we are, Weird Church as a gathering of people is a community of belonging, a place where we do spiritual exploration, where we come together to learn, to sing, to wonder, to play, to pray, to paddle on the water. That's coming up in August or on the 10th. And this is a place where there's no barriers to participation. So, no matter your race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, family structure, whether or not you have ever set foot in a church or not, you are welcome in this place. You are welcome if you've never missed a Sunday at church. No matter where you are in life's journey, this is a community of belonging that you are welcome to join in on. Where I am and where the building that Weird Church occupies sits is on stolen land. It's on Kwakwalawa territory. And we name that anytime we do anything because it matters. It matters to recognize that for myself, I am an uninvited guest, a settler in this place. And to make clear to the ancestors, past, present, and future, to make clear to myself that I am here to be in a good way, that church is part of a long colonial history, and we are seeking to be a decolonizing church to find a new way. So we give thanks for the stewards of this land since time immemorial, and we just take a moment of pause to say Gila Kesla, which is thank you in Kapala. Let's just take a moment. Gila Kesla. Before we do anything else, I want to invite you into just a time of grounding. Let's just maybe feel your feet on the floor, feel your body wherever it is connected to the floor or the seat you're on, cushions, wherever your body is being held, wherever those points of connection are. Just give yourself a minute to sink in a little deeper, breathing in, breathing out. Resting for that moment and trusting in that which holds you. I'm going to light a candle. You're welcome to do the same, not as an invitation for the divine God, presence of love and light that animates all things and unites all things, not to invite that presence in because that presence is always available to us, but to give us a place to focus, an opportunity to remember that the light is always present, that the spirit is always here, that the divine is a presence that we absolutely seep in, soak in, live in at all times. Would you pray with me? Holy One, we give thanks for this moment. We breathe and our breath grounds us here in this moment, and it connects us with you, with our siblings around the world, human and other than human. We pause in this moment to turn our hearts, our very selves towards you, allowing us to zero in on this thing called gratitude. To give thanks is to pay attention to the parts of living that bring delight and to turn away from what destroys. And so align us in thankfulness, God. Align us in you. When bitterness or fear or grief obstruct our vision, touch us with a reminder of gratitude to search out that which is alive, that which gives life. We may be too aware in our lives of the ache and loss and injustice that surrounds us, but in the midst of it all, remind us to turn to you with words of thanks, allowing that nourishing practice to seep into all that we do. Show us how. Amen. So I wanted to take a minute to turn to gratitude. So it was the focus of last Sunday's gathering. For those that missed it or want a condensed version, here we are. And so I wanted to start with an idea of gratitude in terms of what it is I'm talking about. So I am not talking about something that I'll call transactional gratitude. So this is like what we learn when we're small, right? Grandma buys you a present, you say thank you put on the sweater or you play with the toy, transaction complete. It isn't bad. It's just one kind of gratitude. And it's not what I'm referring to. The practice of gratitude is a part of almost every world religion, faith tradition, and life philosophy. The Islamic faith focuses on prayer 5 times a day, in part giving thanks. And one of the 5 pillars of Islam is the observance of Ramadan, a month-long holiday of fasting and turning one's attention to those with greater needs, therefore putting the believer, the practicer, into a state of gratitude. The Buddhist tradition, gratitude leads to metta, to loving kindness, which melts the barriers we build between each other. The Hebrew scriptures are full of thanksgiving and prayers of gratefulness. The Psalms use the word thanks more than 50 times. And in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, in his letters to the wee baby churches, wrote thanks over and over again. And he urges folks to be grateful in all things, not necessarily for all things. Get it? Grateful in all things, not necessarily for all things. Don't mind my dog. I want to share a reading with you today from my tradition, which from the book that is called First Thessalonians. So just a brief bit of context. Christian Old Testament, first half of the Bible, same as the Hebrew scriptures. And then there are the 4 accounts of the Jesus story called the Gospels. And then you have the book of Acts, which is basically how the Christian church got started. And then the epistles, which are letters, mostly from Paul and his gang, to all the little baby churches that had sprouted up around that little reverse C shape from Africa through Israel and up into Greece. After that, there's apocalyptic literature, but that's a whole nother story. So this letter, preserved from about the year AD 51, so old letter, is written to a baby church in Thessalonica, which is the capital city of the Roman province of Macedonia. And it reads like a letter we might read today. It has a greeting to the folks of the church, grace and peace to you. Lovely. The letter talks about 3 things. The first one, hey, it's been a hot minute and Jesus hasn't come back yet. We know, still waiting. And then there's these other 2 pieces. How we live lives of love in contrast to the culture around us that seems obsessed with vanity and greed. And how do we maintain our grounding in love in the midst of all of that? So there are 3 sentences I want to share with you. The first one has 2 words. Pantote periete. So traditionally it gets translated as rejoice always, but let's break it down. If you know me, you know that I love language, especially ancient language, and I love to go down the rabbit hole. So I'm inviting you along with me today. Pantote, always, at all times. It doesn't mean forever, like in the English sense, but it is the present action of doing something, an ongoing action. And kariete, which gets translated as rejoice, but it comes from the word kairo from the two words kar, leaning towards, and charis, grace. So rejoice always becomes always be in the action of leaning towards grace. Remember, Paul is writing a response to the question of how do we live lives of love in contrast to the culture around us? It seems obsessed with vanity and greed. And how do we maintain our grounding in love in the midst of all of that? Always be in the action of leaning towards grace. Okay, second sentence, two more words. Adialepetos proseukomai. So, adialepetos, unceasingly, with no time gap or interval, incessantly. And then, this is my most excellent, delicious word, proeuskomai, which gets translated as pray. But it's from these two words, pros, which means towards or in exchange with, and euchomai, which also means prayer. So when you put them together to make proseukomai, it means to be praying, but in a posture of exchange. So this verse gets translated as pray without ceasing. But what it really means in the depths in the ancient language and all the nuance there is it means to spend life in this conversation with God, in this exchange with the divine. Again, the question, how do we maintain our grounding in the midst of all of the everything? To live in reciprocal exchange with the divine. So there's even this underlying kind of meaning about how when we're in that flow, our own crunchy or salty or cranky or selfish or greedy or thoughts and feelings are exchanged. That even the wishes of our lives are exchanged when we're in this flow. In 12-step recovery, that same idea is often referred to as being in conscious contact with your higher power. So, adialepitos proeuskomai, let your consciousness remain at all times in reciprocity with the divine. Cool, right? Okay. The third sentence is longer. Ampanti Euchariste tutto gartalen Mateo on Christo Jesu ischimas. Ampanti, in everything, but not like in everything the way we understand it. It means in every part of the whole. Okay. Eucharisto, give thanks, from the words you, good or well, charis, grace, and charisomene, which means like freely given, meaning that the Greek word for giving thanks is actually this mashup of recognizing God's loving presence in all the things. Tutto gartele Mateo. This is the will of God, as it gets translated. But what this means here, the word will, is really interesting because it actually is like a dream. The word is thelema, and it means dream or greatest desire or like best imagined outcome. The will of God, right? We think of will as like this, but really this is like God's best imagined outcome, God's biggest dream. On Christo Jesu, as shared by Jesus. So no matter who you understand the person of Jesus to be, historical figure, inspired human, incarnate presence of God on earth, what Paul is saying that this is the teaching from this teacher. Ischimas, which means for you, but it actually means like towards you or like encompassing you for your purpose. So this sentence, in everything, in every part of the whole, be aware of God's presence. This is God's dream as shared by Jesus for you. And so this whole thing, how do we live lives of love, especially in the midst of all of the everything? Always be in the action of leaning towards grace. Let your consciousness remain at all times in reciprocity with the divine. In every part of the whole, be aware of God's loving presence. This is God's dream for you. grateful in all things, not necessarily for all things. May we dare to live into that dream. Amen. So I invite you to take some time with that. And before I finish off our time together, I wanted to share something that comes from the Hindu tradition. So Hindus say that giving thanks is a life-giving soul quality. And in Hindu scriptures, the Vedas, we learn that giving thanks is an exercise of our free will. So we get to choose to give thanks or not. So um, that is one beautiful thing. And another part that comes from the Hindu teaching says, if you can't say thank you, if you're struggling to connect to gratitude, then speak this affirmation: I am a spiritual being of light, maturing in the ocean of experience. Okay, say that again. So when you're struggling and you can't find a thank you, you can say, I am a spiritual being of light, maturing in the ocean of experience. And as one Hindu reflector put it, it's a very nice way of saying, I am immersed in an experience that totally sucks, and I am so frustrated, lost, sad, and angry that I can't see anything to give thanks for, but this loathsome experience is growing me. So maybe that's what you can say on the days where gratitude is hard. I want to offer my thanks for you joining me today in my little prayer corner. This is where I do all of my morning meditations. And so it's good to have you with me here, whether you're using this visually or just in your ears. And before I say goodbye, I want to just remind you that you are loved. You are loved, not because of anything you have done, not because of anything you have not done, not because of anything other than you. You are a precious and beloved child of God, beautiful to behold. And so the challenge this week is to live into that love, to walk it, to talk it, to believe it, because the world needs more love. Amen.